try to share all the knowledge we have, within our experience. So today I have a topic called as monitoring and visualizing Redis using containerized Redis Insight. So let us get started. Okay, a little about myself. I am a Docker captain as well as Docker community leader. Recently, I have been appointed as an ARM innovator. There are around 24 ARM innovators, so I am one of them. And you can surely see a couple of interesting stuff coming up within Raspberry Pi and Jetson board. Right now, I'm working as a solution architect in Redis Labs. I joined around 2 months back, and still on the onboarding phase. I have worked with Dell EMC for around 8 years, 8.5 years, and then VMware and CGI. I am an author of Collabnix.com, which has around 200 plus blogs, and those blogs are more on Docker, Kubernetes, and cloud, and those are like quite popular. Also, I have been running few of the workshops in the local Docker Bangalore Meetup Group, and there has been a huge support from the community. This is my Twitter handler. You can go ahead and check out the tweets about the new stuff which is upcoming in the market. Okay, so if you look at the way, especially about the rise of distributed computing, you will get to know that there is a huge amount of data which has been produced by the IoT devices. So I was going through an IDC report which says like there will be 50 billion connected IoT devices. Can you just imagine that? Which will surpass the number of people who are in this world, right? So when you have a 50 billion connected IoT devices, you can expect that there will be a huge amount of data which will be produced. And these data, right, will generate around 80 zettabytes. So you can think of it as like trillions of gigabytes of data. And that is expected by 2025. Now, when you have, if you have worked in machine learning, deep learning, so in machine learning, what we do basically, we collect all the data, and based on that, we do a kind of an analysis on top of it, right? When you say huge amount of data, we need a powerful systems which can absorb those data. And if you look at Twitter, right, Twitter has the most complex distributed system ever in this world, and how these data has been processed is through a very powerful system which they equip in their data center. Talking about the relation database, now when we talk about data that has to be pushed to some kind of a database system or some kind of systems which are powerful enough to go ahead and handle those, usually what we do is put it into the relation database. Now relation database systems like Oracle, MariaDB, those are very good. They are very easy to use, and provides powerful features which basically can handle those data. But at the same time, when you talk about the scalability, think of it as the streaming of data which is coming from the Twitter, how they will be injected into those systems is what makes the sense, right? So what you end up with is buying an expensive single server and dumping all your data, right? But when you try to push the data, you try to, one of the thing which you can, what you do is basically you do kind of an horizontal scaling where you add more and more servers to it. But your application or your database has to be powerful enough to go ahead and handle those data. And one of the reason is why we are talking about is the elasticity. Whenever any data or a new stream of data comes into the picture and that gets pushed into the server, that has to be distributed across multiple systems. And this marks a kind of a limitation with the existing relational database system. This is where your NoSQL database comes into the picture, which refers to not only SQL, which means that we are talking about both structured as well as unstructured data. When we say NoSQL, it basically encompasses a variety of different databases technologies in response to demand. If you remember about the 4 V's, so right now we usually talk about the 7 V's, but the 4 main dimensions of of data would be in terms of volume, velocity, veracity, and as well as the variety of this data. And to equip all those features, you need a highly scalable architecture, right? And that is provided by the NoSQL database. Not only highly availability, but the performance, the throughput, the latency comes into the picture. Now, if you look at the type of NoSQL database which exists today, we have categorized in the form of key value, graph DB, columnar DB, and the document. And you see that Redis is a key value. When we say Redis as a key value, it is not just a key value today, but it can have a multiple data types. Like it has hashes, it has sets, sorted sets, geospatial data and indexes. In the same way, when we are talking about data and you are trying to build a relationship out of it, then we talk about Neo4j. MongoDB is again another type of NoSQL database where we talk about building an indexes out of it, storing a JSON, you know, and here the terms usually we use is a documents, and document is the where you go ahead and store those kind of a data. Cassandra DB is one highly scalable database system which basically uses columns rather than the rows. Now, since this talk is more on the Redis and I have been working on it, maybe like I can go ahead and share some of the experience which I have with Redis. So Redis is primarily built for speed. When you have a huge amount of data streaming into your servers on the distributed system, you need a powerful database system which can basically go ahead and handle those data. And Redis today is both open source as well as a commercial. But Redis, when we say Redis, is something which is an OSS. We call it as a Redis open source version. Redis is more popular as a caching solution, but we do have a persistent too in terms of append only file system or creating a snapshot. It's highly available. So we have a tool called as Sentinel, which basically comes integrated, and you can go ahead and also install it and configure it for your Redis cluster. Sentinel provides you with a highly availability feature. Redis is simple to use. You can do all of the CRUD application. It supports a transaction-based data structure, and then you have a powerful data structure. And one thing which makes Redis really fast is in-memory database system, which means that you can run the whole Redis. You can query the Redis keys, values, and all, and that gets stored on RAM itself. So that's why it is when you compare it with all the other types of database system which sits on a disk, Redis primarily works on RAM. Now look at the community adoption, and especially the most fascinating figure here is the downloads of Docker Hub image, Redis Docker Hub image. Per day, we have noticed around 5.4 million launches per day in terms of the Redis. So you can just think of it as when you compare it with other NoSQL database system, other NoSQL as well as a relation database system, it is most downloaded because of its lightweight nature as well as the speed. And Stack Overflow, under 2019 developers survey, they put it as most loved database system. If you look at the number of programming languages which basically supports Redis, or in other way, we have around 50 plus programming languages, which can act as a client. So which means that if you are well versed with Python, you can write a Python script, and then you can connect to the Redis server and do some kind of key value operations, and around 100 plus client libraries. Now there are three pillars which drives the Redis popularity. One is performance, simplicity, and extensibility. When we say performance, there are two important factors which come into the picture. One is throughput and the other one is latency. The way how you are trying to access your data and how fast you are accessing. It talks about the throughput and the latency respectively. About the simplicity, there are different data structures. So I do have one slide which I am going to talk about, and extensibility is one factor which really makes Redis very powerful because we have a modular data structure. So I do have a slides where I'm going to talk about. So let's talk about the performance first. Now, the moment you click on the web page, right, when you click on the web page and the moment the queries goes to the database, in between we have, it is some of the rule is like it takes around, it should not take more than 100 milliseconds. And when you talk about your application server talking to the database system, it should be, it should not exceed more than 50 millisecond. In terms of Redis, the latency is just 1 millisecond. And I'm going to show you a demo kind of stuff where I have compared the MySQL database with the Redis. And we do have one of the application which I have worked on. And in that application, I will show you what difference, what is the latency in between when we compare the latency in between the MySQL and the Redis, how we can achieve a 1 millisecond latency out of it. Redis is very rich in data structure. You can see like there are strings, bitmaps, bitfield, hashes. So I have a small demo where I'm going to show you. I'm going to show you how we use these hashes for a geospatial data and indexes. We have a linked list. We have sets, sorted sets, geospatial indexes, hyperlog, streams. Now streams come into the picture when you have a huge stream of logs which is flowing through and you want to accommodate that. So these are very powerful data structure. Now, why we need all this data structure? Because there is always a use case which is attached to it. Think of it as like you are talking about market data cache where you are using the strings, or you want to just know a number of unique visitors where you have some kind of a sets. Then you do a kind of an account margin or risk threshold monitoring. You have sorted sets. Geospatial indexes is something which I'm going to show you in demo, where I'm going to show you how you can go ahead and track the brewery shop on the map. Okay, one of the primary factor, the why Redis is so popular is the multimodal database. As I showed, right, Redis is not just a key value pair. It also, it can do a search. It has very powerful search engine. So the same way how you are using the Elasticsearch, we use it, which basically does the indexing on a disk. This particular Redis search does it on the RAM, and that is the reason it is so fast. We have a Redis gears. We have Redis JSON, which basically you can have a document and you can, from document, you can fetch a JSON and put it in the Redis database system. And in the same way, like when you talk about the AI, we have kind of a Redis AI, which you can use to do some kind of an object detection and analytics. We have a time series. So whatever output you get out of the Prometheus or the InfluxDB, it's something where the data, if you want to store today, it is possible more with the time series, Redis time series module. Okay, now coming to the interesting fact, if you want all those modules today on your machine, all you have to do is insert those modules, but there is a Docker container which can help you get all those modules which is inbuilt. And all you have to do is say Docker run and say Redis lab / Redis mod. And so it brings up the Redis server with all the modules. Okay, so let me jump to a quick demo where I'm going to show you how to run Redis server locally with authentication. By the way, this won't be on the Docker. It will be like a plane. And then in the next demo, I'm going to show you how we can save more and more time using Docker here. So the first demo I'm going to show you first is run Redis server locally with some kind of an authentication. And then searching, I'm sure like one of the things which you are missing out during the lockdown is beer shops. So I have just put one of the interesting example where I'm going to go ahead and search all the brewery shops over map within a range of 50 miles, leveraging Redis geospatial data and indexes, and that too in next 2 to 3 minutes. So let me grab my terminal. Okay, fine. So let me make the screen a little bigger size. Okay, the first thing which I am going to do is I'm going to start a Redis server, and it is pretty much simple. All you have to do is say brew install Redis, and that should go ahead and install Redis. So since it is going to take a few minutes, so I'm just going to skip that. And all I am going to do is start a Redis server with some kind of password, again, just for the demo. And this starts a Redis server. Okay, so I can quickly connect to the Redis server. So I'm just saying Redis CLI, and it gets connected to the Redis server, which is running on my Mac machine. all I can do is say info command. It will ask for authentication. So let me give a password and then type in info. So at this point of time, you can see that right now we don't have any key. Okay. Now let me come out of it, and then I have a Redis server which is already running. So let me pick up some kind of an application. So as I said, right, we are going to run a kind of geospatial. We will be using a geospatial indexes data to search all the brewery shop on the map. So let me pick up one of the application. So the first thing which I'm going to do is I have a file called config.py, which is the Python based, and where I'm specifying about the host port and the password just for the demonstration. And the first thing which I'm going to do is I have a huge data, right, of the world, the cities of the world, as well as all the brewery shop near US. Okay, so I can show you here. So this is something, you know, the huge amount of data set. So I can pick up any of the Twitter data set if you want. But at this point of time, I'm just picking up this particular data set where you can see the shop name here, longitude, latitude, and the country name, right? And especially the locations. So this data set is available over the internet also, so you can use it. And the first thing which I'm going to do is I am going to import all of these data set inside Redis. So let me come out of it. Okay, so I will going to run Redis import by. So if you see that there are around 16,000 entries, and you will see like it is going to finish in next couple of seconds, I would say. Okay, so there are around 16,790 recorded records which has already been inserted into the Redis. So let me check that. So I can do auth Redis 12 hash. Let me do this. Okay, and when I say info, you can see here there is a first DB instance which has around 16,000 entries here. So everything is inserted inside the Redis server. Okay, so there is a small Flask application which, since I want to get it display on the map, so let me show you this. Okay, so this is one of the Python application which uses Flask, where I'm specifying about the host port and the password. And if you just go a little down, it will try to there are different sections which I've added. The first thing is task one is you can scan for a city with a specific prefix, take the first city, retrieve the country of the city, and retrieve the coordinate of the city. Okay, and then you find the max 10 close by brewery shops, right? So let me go ahead and run this particular application. So once I run this, it get exposed on port 5000. So let me show you here. Okay, so this is how the application comes up, and you can see a map here. And this application provides you with the options like you can specify city as well as a distance. So first thing I'm going to do is test a DB connectivity. So it shows that the Redis server is up and running and your application is able to connect to this particular database. So I will just go ahead and say city as New York and 50 miles and say submit. So it found me a kind of a 10 brewery shop which is near to this particular New York location. So you can think of it as like, so how quickly it was, like how fast it was, the overall implementation. Now this looks good since we have this application up and running. Okay, so let me jump back to the slides. Okay, now this looks good as part of developer tool Redis. As a developer, you can go ahead and do some kind of retrieve the key value pair and all those things. So let's talk about database management now. When you as a developer, when you are playing out with the CLI part, most of the time, there is one ask which I have seen in the community is there a GUI for Redis? Now, this is something really interesting, and there has been a lot of effort which has been put. If you look at around, there are around 7 to 8 very uh, popular Redis GUI which is available, but they don't provide you, access to all those Redis multi-model architecture, multi-model data structures. So most of the tools which are available, they do one or more, they do come with one or more feature which are powerful, but they are not feature rich. So based on that, because here we are talking more on the different modules like Redis Search, Redis JSON. So there is no tool which can provide you all the functionality which you can get over the GUI for managing all those data structure modules. And that is where and one more thing is what we were trying to do is, this particular tool has to be supported on it should work on all the platforms like Windows, Linux, Docker, Kubernetes, OpenShift, right? And that is where even Elastic Cache, AWS Elastic Cache, it uses the Redis OSS version. So and especially the Redis open source version, right? So we came up with something called as Redis Insight. So this was announced during the month of November, and this is a GUI tool which can help you in database management and operation. Today it runs on Docker as well as a Kubernetes. It has an ability to auto discover all the Redis databases which is sitting either on the AWS Elastic Cache, Redis Enterprise, Redis OSS. Uh, you know, uh, you can go ahead and try to connect to the Redis OSS, which I'm going to show you in a couple of minutes. One of the great thing about Redis Insight is that the visualization, like you can look at the graphs. It shows like a very powerful, graphing tool where you can go ahead and click on a particular graph and you can see the relation in between those data items. Redis Insight is a lightweight multi-platform management GUI. So you can see on the screen, I can go ahead and add a database manually, as well as I can auto discover Redis Cloud. So Redis Cloud is an offering where you can host your own Redis server on the Redis Labs cloud itself, and that is powered today by with AWS as well as GCP. Uh, you can do a lot of stuff around it. If you maybe like I can show you in a demo. Let me go directly to the demo here. Okay. So let me use the same module and try to connect. Okay. Okay, fine. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to run a Redis Insight inside a Docker container. So all you have to do is Docker run and then publish a kind of a port on 8001. And since it is lightweight, it should not take much time and it should bring up the instances. Let me go back and look into this one. So you can see here by this time since I have already configured it with the local machine, so you can definitely go ahead and connect to it. So if you remember, for the brewery shop, we imported around 16,000 plus keys, right? So you can see the keys here, and with that you have many options. I can even run a CLI here itself. Okay, so let me see where it has gone. Okay, so I can even go ahead and run some kind of authentication first, and especially you can see some kind of it helps you to give an option like which and it shows you about the connection, like whether how it is going to connect. So let me pass on this authentication. Okay, so okay, fine. I think it is going to the next screen. But anyway, let me go back to this. Let me pick up the second one. So there are other options like Stream, Redis Graph, Redis Time Series, all these modules. So these modules are usually not available in the open source version of all those tools, right? But Redis Insight is completely free. You can connect to any of your Redis Enterprise or OSS, so you don't have to pay for this. There is no licensing. This is completely a free tool. In terms of Redis memory analysis, so you can also analyze that how much memory your particular key has, consuming. So we do have an offline analysis. So what you usually do is, there is a file called as RDB, which is Redis database backup file. You can go ahead and scan that file, and you can run an offline analysis. And I can also do an on analysis on top of it. I can also look at the slow logs, like why the performance, if the performance of your the queries is being impacted, it is taking more and more time. You can look at the slow log. You can have the list of the clients, right, which is listed here. So I have a small demo which I have recorded, which I would like to go ahead and play and show you how we compare a relation database system with a kind of a NoSQL database. So let me show you a kind of a demo here. So there are few of the microservices which we have built, which talks about MySQL. Those are like a MySQL, and then and this application is all about the movie databases. Now, what we have done is, we have like 100,000 of movies which we have collected from IMDb, and then based on that, we will be evaluating the microservice which is running. So if you look at this particular Docker Compose, so I have a Redis server which is running on 6379, and I have a MySQL database also running on the same system, which is exposed on 3306. Now there are different, as I talked, right, there are different Redis data structures. So I'm specifying all those data, Redis streams, Redis JSON, Redis search under this particular Docker Compose file. And Redis search comes with the autocomplete feature. So those kind of a feature also, we can go ahead and try to see in this example. And there is some kind of a front-end application which we have built. So let me come out of it and quickly bring up the microservices with Docker Compose up. And it should take next 2 to 3 seconds to bring up the application. So let me open a tab. And one other thing which we can do is bring up a kind of a Redis Insight, so that you can go ahead and see all those, you can evaluate all those modules under Redis Insight. Again, I'm running it inside a Docker container. So we do have a Kubernetes YAML file too, which you can just use it. I have written 2 or 3 blogs on top of it. And at the end of this particular slides, I have those references which I put. Now, I can go ahead and try to connect to one of the database, right? And this is how this whole application you can access through Redis-microservices-demo. So I'm going to help you out maybe in the chat window later point of time. So this is how a Redis movie database which we have created, and we are trying to see how to modernize the legacy application with the microservices. The whole idea is improving the data access speed, and trying to, since we are talking about more on the performance side, here we will see like how we can gain a latency of around 1 millisecond with Redis. And with MySQL database, it usually it takes around 100 millisecond, more than 100 millisecond. But with the Redis, we expect less than like 1 millisecond. Okay, so this in under this feature, you can click on movies, and once you click on movies, it will display all the movies. So let me pick up one of the movie here, maybe in Interstellar. That is one of my favorite. And if you look at this particular section, it shows you this page is using a kind of a MySQL database. And if you see, there is one toggle which is near to this, and where I can specify. So when I say enable Redis cache, okay, at this point of time, I have a MySQL, and it is taking around 73 millisecond, right? 82 millisecond, and it is fetching from MySQL database. Now let me go ahead and toggle it by using Redis cache, and look at the latency, just 1 millisecond. Now that is what I was talking about, the speed as well as the performance, right? Because you are getting huge latency with a MySQL database, whereas the same like less than 1 millisecond latency out of it. Now, let me show you a few of the microservices, because if you remember, we have been building a microservices. There was a Docker Compose file, right? I can even go ahead and, look the same stuff, since we have used Redis Insight and that we have connected to the Redis server. And that is the reason you are able to see all those keys under the Redis Insight. Okay. Now, here you can see that we have picked up the keys which we have inserted into the Redis server, and that works good. Now, let us look at the rest of the services which we have. So what we have done is, like, there are around, sorry. So we have seen that there are around 5 services which we have created: RDBMS to Redis Stream, autocomplete, Redis Graph. So let me pick up either 2 or 3 of those application. All you need to do is go ahead and try to click on the started button, right? And once it shows the running state, and this is all we are talking about the Redis stream. You remember, especially on the logs which are coming from various data sources. And if you look at this, there have been the inventory which is been populated here. I can go to the view column and I can specify the first name or the last name or date of birth, and based on that, it is fetching me all these informations here. Now, if you click on actors, so at any point of time, I can go ahead and make the changes on the actor name. Say if I specify as Christopher's here and submit it, the same gets reflected in no minute in no minutes under the Redis Insight. So you can see here, just let me scroll it a bit. Okay, so maybe there is a huge amount of data. We need some kind of a refresh here. Yes, I think it should appear by now. Okay. So let's try again. Okay, so one of the thing which I was missing is the first name, and that is the reason why it was not displaying. So yeah, we can see here the Christopher. And the operation which you say, as you know about, like, since we have updated the name, and that is the reason why you see name appears here. Okay, I can pick up any other entries and say submit, and at the same time you can see that it will get updated. Yeah, GUI-FF. So you can see, like, whatever the changes which we make in the Redis server, it gets reflected to the Redis Insight, which shows that Redis Insight is very efficient. Now, in terms of graph, this could be like the last example which I wanted to showcase. Now, in terms of graph, it basically shows you the relationship in between the various components or the data. So since we have enabled it should appear at this point of time. Now, this is really fancy. So let me go ahead and put some kind of an query out of it. So let me pick up this where it shows about the actors, and you can put it here. Okay, and do the search, and you can see here, you can even interact with those kind of graphs and try to find out the relationship in between, its attributes. Okay, just click on it and it will basically show you how you can move those graphs here, acted in which movies and all. So it shows you the movies which this particular actor has acted on. Yeah, so this was one thing. Okay, let's move ahead. So to show you how it works on the Kubernetes, so this is how the YAML file look like. So if you just search for Redis Insight, Redis Labs, Kubernetes, you will see this YAML file where we are specifying this particular, different types of pods and all you can specify, and it does work. Now, these are the references which I was talking about. I have written few of the blogs on top of Redis Active, as well as Redis Insight. Do check it out. And even if I have few of the blogs which I have written on Jetson Nano Redis, running Redis on Jetson Nano, in a sense, like I want to do some kind of a deep learning object detection kind of a application. So that is the reason I was trying to replace MongoDB, Redis, and try to see how the performance usually gets impacted. Yeah, thanks, thank you. Over to you, Saloni.
Thank you, Ujit, for the wonderful insight on Redis Insight. That was great session. And I could see already Sangam has answered all the questions on YouTube. So if you want, if you have any further questions from Ajit, you can follow him on Twitter and join.